More details have come out about the deadly shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and they're not exactly flattering to the local police. Now, according to witnesses, and there are videos, I'm not going to show you the videos because they're incredibly difficult to watch, but basically, you have these videos of witnesses telling the police, do something, go in there and do something, for God's sakes. Now, the reports also note that police officers waited outside of the school while the shooter was inside for nearly an hour, somewhere between 40 minutes to an hour, waiting for Border Patrol units to come in. And this is after an hour, roughly an hour after Ramos barricaded himself in the school and, of course, began shooting. Now, let me go to a report here from the Associated Press. Quote, while police have given conflicting timelines, the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety said at one point that 40 minutes to an hour passed between when Ramos first shot at a school safety officer, you know, the police officer that was supposed to be in the school, who may or may not have fired back, and then fired on two arriving Uvalde police officers who were outside the building, and when Ramos was finally shot by a tactical team. Within that time period, of course, we know that Ramos was able to massacre 19 students and 2 faculty members. Now, how many could have been saved had the police done their job? I have no idea. Maybe they could have saved a few. Maybe they could have saved all of them. Maybe they could have saved none of them. Who's to say, right? But they didn't even try. They didn't even try. Now, the report goes on, of course, to show how frustrated and frantic parents and onlookers were. In fact, one of the videos, it showed Juan Carranza, 24, who lived near the school, okay, who saw the scene from outside his house, where he had seen women outside saying, go in there, telling the police, go and do your job. Do your job, folks, do your job. Carranza said the officers, of course, did not go in. Javier Cazares, whose 4th grade daughter, and this is heartbreaking, the 4th grade daughter, Jacklyn Cazares, was killed in that attack. And so he's saying, look, why didn't you get in there? Upset that police were not moving because they were just massed outside the building, he decided, okay, let's go in ourselves. Let's just rush in because the cops aren't doing anything like they're supposed to, he said. Quote, more could have been done. Get in there. Cops, what are you doing? Instead, they stood outside and started going after the people that were prodding them, that were begging them to try to go in there and stop the massacre. Useless, absolutely useless. Look, according to one of the children who survived, and this is even more heartbreaking and just, you know, infuriating. According to one of the children who survived, speaking to local news station KNS5, an officer had instructed them to yell help if they needed it. So what happened? One of the children did so, yelled help from inside the building. And because of that, they were discovered and killed by the shooter. Way to go. Way to go. Absolutely just horrifying. Terrible. Cazares then added, quote, they were unprepared. You would think that they would be prepared for this because isn't that part of their training? Wasn't that supposed to be part of the training? To deal with things like this? No, it's not. What, do you expect the cops to actually do something? No, that's not how this works. That's not how cops work. Do you expect the cops to actually risk their lives? No. Look, let me tell you, and these are indisputable facts before you guys catch feelings, okay? Being a cop is not even close to the most dangerous job in this country. Unless, of course, you decide to not wear a mask and not get vaccinated during a pandemic. which, by the way, we saw a lot of cops do. They threw a complete and utter shit fit over wearing masks and getting vaccinated. And you know what? As a result, here are the numbers. In 2020 and 2021, COVID-19 was the leading cause of death for on-duty police officers in the country. More cops died from the virus than criminals. Here are more numbers. Some 458 local, state, tribal, and federal officers died in the line of duty in 2021, according to a report from the National Law Enforcement Memorial and Museum. That marks an increase of 55% from the previous year's tally of 295, and the highest total number since 1930. COVID-19 related fatalities, there were 301, were the leading cause of death in 2021, as they were in 2020, when at least 182 officers died of the virus, which is an increase of about 65% in 1 year. Whoops. Hey, look, that shouldn't surprise anybody. Again, as I told you, they threw a fit. Departments including New York City, Chicago, LA, Seattle, and Phoenix complained incredibly loudly about mandates, vaccine mandates for public employees, as well as wearing masks. So, yeah. Hey, I guess being a cop is dangerous when you're against a virus. Leading cause of death for police. Now, as far as being a school-aged child, I reported yesterday how it's actually more dangerous in this country to be a school-aged child than it is to be a police officer. More children have died from gun violence in this country from 5 to 18 than officers were killed on duty. And again, the majority of officers killed on duty in the last couple of years were from COVID. It's more dangerous to be a groundskeeper than it is to be a cop, or to work in agriculture, or to be a truck driver, or sanitation worker. Way more dangerous. I mean, and by the way, you would expect the cops to actually rush into a building with an active shooter when they have proven time and time again that they are trained 100% to value their own lives more than anyone else. By the way, there are other reports that after the SWAT team the Border Patrol team had taken care of Ramos, those police officers rushed in to grab their own children. Don't care about yours. I mean, how many times have we done stories on this show where police officers have shot unarmed people with mental illnesses because they were scared? Oh, I'm afraid for my life. This person with mental health care needs mental health care. Or again, somebody who has a knife while they're armed with guns. Just recently, there was a story that went viral. They shot and killed an elderly woman with dementia who had a knife but could not understand the officer's orders. They shot and killed her. Grandma. No lady. And by the way, I am not saying that, of course, the people who become cops are all cowards. I'm not saying that. No. What I'm saying, though, is cops are trained to be cowards. They are trained. That is in their training to protect themselves over everyone else. Their main job is not to protect people. This was actually adjudicated during a court case where police were not required to help human beings. Police are only there to protect property. And that's it. Look, when you're a cop, you are trained that you are a hammer and that everything else is a nail. But in that same training, they also tell you, do not risk your life. Do not put your life in danger at all. At all. At all. Can't do it. That's why they waited an hour for Border Patrol to come and take out this guy while they sat their asses outside and ate donuts or something. Now look, Republicans like Greg Abbott and others, what they say, well, you know what we need to do? We need to harden the schools. We need to harden the schools. We need to put more cops there. We already had cops there. Obviously, that didn't work at all. Officials said Ramos actually encountered a school district security officer outside the school, though there have been conflicting reports from authorities on whether the man actually exchanged gunfire. And after running inside, he fired on 2 arriving Uvalde police officers who were outside the building. This is according to Texas Department of Public Safety spokesperson Travis Considine. Those officers were injured. It's almost as if the idea of having police stationed at schools doesn't actually stop school shootings. Well, that whole good guy with the gun doesn't seem to work at all. Not at all. It didn't work here. It didn't work in Buffalo. Buffalo, again, not a school, but in Buffalo, that Tops grocery store had a security guard that was armed. You know what happened? The shooter who cased the joint beforehand knew that that security officer was going to be a potential problem and went after him first. Got the drop. That's because that's what happens. That's what happens. It didn't work in Buffalo. Didn't work in Uvalde, didn't work in Parkland. Police and security guards, oftentimes, in these mass shooting events, are the first casualties. Now, of course, that presents some other problems as well. Because, guess what? You kill a police officer, that's more ammunition. That's free ammunition. And another weapon to now do more harm. And no one to stop them. It's another reason why they shouldn't have armed guards. They look, not only do they suck at stopping or preventing mass shooters, because we've seen that. We've had 27 mass shootings just this year alone. Just this year alone. Armed guards, many of these places didn't do a damn thing. But not only do they suck at stopping mass shooters, but guess what? Turns out their presence in schools actually allows for the harassment and arrests of minorities. Radley Balco, writing for the Washington Post, this was back in 2018, so we've known this for a long time, just notes that police, while not stopping mass shootings, they do, go after a lot of minorities. In fact, he said if administrators increasingly turn to on-site police officers to discipline students, that means more kids will be handcuffed, tased, and beaten by police. Alex Vitale, sociologist at the University of New York, in the author of The End of Policing, wrote that because mass shootings are statistically rare, which again doesn't feel all that rare, and now shown to, look, these cops, bad for students. Being in these schools, it's worse for students to have the cops in there. So what are these school police officers actually doing all day, every day? He writes, since they're not preventing school shootings, they're harassing kids, searching kids, waging a war on drugs, engaged in criminalizing disciplinary problems, and the burden of that falls most heavily on disabled kids. Kids of color and LGBTQ kids, in the form of harassment, arrest. That's what actual everyday school police do. These are facts. Now, if police bootlickers, you want to catch feelings about this, go ahead. Cry all day. Go cry about it. These are facts. These are facts. Look, more police aren't gonna solve the problem. Because the big problem here is the proliferation in easy access to guns. It's easier to get guns in this country than mental health care. Or any kind of health care. In Texas, uteruses are more heavily regulated than guns are. Now, I'm not saying grab all the guns. I'm saying, hey, you should at least make it as difficult to get a gun as you do for a woman or anybody with a uterus who is seeking an abortion. Just make it that difficult. Mandatory waiting periods, mental health checks, age restrictions, multiple visits, all the stuff they do for somebody seeking reproductive health care. That would be easy. Go ahead and do that. It might actually help. Because right now what we're doing, more guns, more cops, ain't working. Ain't working.